I love when coaches, consultants, and professional service providers want to do big things in their business. They want to rise to the top and influence their market and the world around them. They want to have a greater impact and make a more lucrative income. Well, if this is you, welcome to Expert in You Podcast, the show where I interview other experts and coaches, consultants, so that they can share their success strategies with you. We're going to talk about marketing and how to close more sales, how to get more premium clients, and how to really build your visibility in the market and scale your business like a boss. If this is you, welcome to the show. I want to ask you to subscribe and hit the notification bell right now so you don't miss one episode. Grab your coffee and buckle up because we are ready to give it all to you to help you become the expert and get paid as the expert that you are. Hey everyone, I want to welcome you back to the Strategic Edge podcast this week. And I am with a wonderful guest. I'm excited to talk to her. I know you're going to get so much value from her today. And her name is Tracy Bianco. And Tracy is the founder and CEO of Tracy Bianco Coaching and Consulting. And she has more than 30 years experience in training, coaching, developing, and leading strong teams. She's worked with small business owners. She's worked in corporate, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Left corporate. And she loves to work with small business owners to really help the ones that are looking to step into leadership. So they really want to lead and they want to be the leader others want to follow. Her expertise lies in meeting leaders where they're at, facilitating positive change in them and their teams, and coaching for continuous improvement and growth. And who does not want that if they're in business? So Tracy is also a certified life and executive coach, and she's the author of A Checklist Life, Breaking Free from a Life of Obligations. I love it. I'm going to have to check out your book.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So Tracy, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate this opportunity. Happy to be here.
Yes. And Tracy and I are actually in somewhat the same location or the same area, which kind of found her by accident through other people. And so I thought it would be great to get her on here. And I always like meeting people that are local that I've never run into before. So that's fun. So Tracy, we're going to jump right in. And I just want you to kind of tell everyone a little bit about your journey, how it sounds like you were in corporate for a long time and then you left that and started your own thing. And we have a lot of coaches and consultants that listen to the show. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to probably even ask you some specific questions about your business as well. And, you know, how you structure things in your coaching. And so let's just jump in. So tell us your journey, Tracy.
Sure. I'm going to start way back at the beginning. I actually started my career as an elementary school teacher. So for 12 years, I taught third and fourth grade, different years for those two grade levels. And I got to a point where I was ready for a change. So I made a big change and I began going to night school to become a court reporter, actually. So I know how to use one of those little machines and
it comes in handy with the computer, right?
Exactly. And during the day, I worked for a corporation in downtown St. Louis that supports law firms. So I was doing that by day, going to court reporting school at night. And what ended up happening with that business, a great business challenge to have, is that it just grew by leaps and bounds in a very short amount of time. So my initial plan of I'm going to work so that I can gain this degree, this certification in court reporting, turned into me utilizing a lot of the skills that all teachers have, the organizing and developing and doing all those sorts of things. The business went from just a handful of employees to so many employees. We were having difficulty keeping up with the growth. I realized throughout that growth how much I enjoyed doing a lot of the things that I used to do with kids. Now I was doing them with adults. And after working for that particular organization for about a dozen years, I went to a leadership seminar and watched the person at the front of the room and thought, that's what I want to do. So that's actually how my business was born. I started off providing corporate training all over the country and did 1 and 2 day sessions for different organizations. throughout the course of doing that. A lot of times throughout those days at break times, people would come up to me and say, hey, I want to ask you a question. I didn't want to ask it in front of the whole group because my coworker's right next to me and it's kind of about her. And I realized after doing this week after week that I was providing coaching during my breaks. And so I went and got my coach's certification. And that is really what helped morph my business into what it is now. So what it is now, Tracy Bianco Coaching and Consulting. I work with small businesses. I go in, we talk about what are the challenges that are happening. Sometimes the challenges are with the leader himself or herself. Oftentimes the challenges are there as well as with the team members that have been hired. And I continue to utilize my teaching skills to help create systems, help communication improve, customer service improve, all those sorts of things. So that is the background.
Great story. And, it sounds like as it evolved, you ended up with this incredible business. And that's really how all of us get into this. Yeah. So I love that story. What are some of the small businesses that you typically work with? And do you still do the corporate training? It sounds like you do. And I assume like workshops and things like that.
Yeah. So the small businesses that I have the opportunity to work with are at this point, for the most part, are coming to me through referrals, others that I've worked with, others that I know within my network, and many different industries. So I'm not a business owner who specifically works with one or two different industries because the work that I do, I'm going to say it's universal. That doesn't mean that I do the exact same work with every single client, but I do not go into an engineering firm. For example, I have a client that's an engineering company. I am not an engineer, nothing anywhere close to being an engineer, but the help that they need has more to do with how to deliver and receive feedback, how to better communicate with the clients they're working with. And so the universal part of my work is really about communication and leadership. With the small business clients that I work with, it is building their plan from our initial discussion to agree to begin working together, and then continuing to have those discussions along the way to help them with their particular challenges. For the corporate training and the speaking services that I continue to offer, even some coaching services. I have individual coaching clients who come to me not through an organization. They'll come to me on their own and say, I want to be considered for the promotion. I want to be a better leader, even in my personal life. And so I've got those types of clients as well, which has been very empowering to work with different kinds of people in different capacities. I don't get bored at all.
Yes. Yeah. Well, a true entrepreneur can't stand to be bored, right?
That's exactly it. Yeah.
No, I love it. So what size company typically would you be talking about? How many employees would they have? What's sort of your average there?
Sure. I wish that I could give you an average. Currently, I'm working with one company who's based out of Ohio, and they have it's a seasonal business. So when they are not in season, they have about 6 employees. When they are in season, they have a couple hundred employees. Mm-hmm. So I go from that range to companies that have 100 to 200 employees.
Okay. That's great. That's great information to know. I love too that you really picked up on the opportunity to start coaching when you were already getting that coming to you, which is how a lot of that happens for us. People start asking our advice and how did you do this? And how can I do this? And so we fall into that. So everything that you're doing is so fantastic. Do you typically get people coming to you because they have a challenge or because they have really this growth mindset that they want to have the best business, a better business? What do you typically see?
That is such a fabulous question. I love that. Nobody's ever asked me that question in that way. However, I've delivered this answer to many different questions. I have both types of clients. And so speaking to those who have the growth mindset, one of my current clients started with me 4 years ago, and their goal at the beginning, they were looking for somebody to come in and provide monthly leadership development training sessions for 2 different levels of leaders. So 1 month it was this group of leaders, the next month it was a higher level leader. And that's how we got started. Over the course of these last few years with them, what I have learned about them and what I love about them so much is that they're already doing so many things really, really well. My work with them has morphed into, we'll do a training session for a specific department. Mm-hmm. And then we find out that over here in this department, there are 2 people that they really want to promote in the coming months, but they need a little bit of that individual coaching. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing many different things with them, a growth mindset organization. They're amazing.
I wish there were more of them. To be honest.
Amen. Because the other types of clients that I get to work with are the clients that come to me because there is some sort of challenge. Right. And so the biggest reason that someone reaches out to me is because that a leader reaches out to me is because he or she sees something that's happening or not happening mm-hmm. among the people that have been hired. And they want me to, quote, air quote, fix those people.
Right.
And so
they want you to do the hard work.
A big part of my job is to get started with those clients and provide training and coaching and mentoring and all the things, while also providing some insight for the leader or leaders to help them understand and see through a different lens that part of the responsibility is on them. Right. And you know as well as I do, because we do some similar work, that we don't start any relationship with, well, you're the one that's doing it wrong. And then these people, right? So
actually that's where you and I are different. I say the buck stops with you. You're the owner, you're the leader. The buck stops with you. I don't care what anyone says. So I'm a little bolder. You're so nice, Tracy.
Okay, maybe I just learned something there. Maybe I need to start with that statement. But
hey, it's worked for you. Keep doing it.
Yeah, it's a lot of times people do come to me with the challenge or challenges they're experiencing, and we get started in that way.
Yes. No, I mean, I think that's for most of us. Thank goodness for challenges, right? Or we might not be in business. But
exactly,
because it does often feel like in this profession that more people come to us with a challenge than actually saying, okay, I want better. I'm looking for more. Yeah. I want that growth. And it would be, those are the ultimate clients to work
exactly.
with. Right?
And I always look at it just personally. I look at it like with the medical profession. If I wake up and I have some really itchy rash on my arm, that first day I'm going to be like, I don't know what happened. But I keep scratching it. I am going to end up calling a doctor to say, I don't know what's going on. The flip side of medical care is making sure that I schedule my well visits.
Right.
Different parts of my physical health. And let's be honest, that rash, I want that figured out, right? That's my challenge of the day. Right. So I equate it to that and understand that it's human nature. When something is not working the way we'd like it to work, we call an expert to say, I want some help with this. Makes sense.
That's a great analogy, actually, to really put it in context. So I love that. So let's talk a little bit about, because like I said, we're going to have a lot of coaches and consultants that listen to this podcast. Sure. Let's talk a little bit about, how did you know how to kind of structure your business when you started? And how did you, did you kind of have to learn that along the way? For me, I had to really learn that along the way. How did you come to know that? Did you get that training, or did you figure it out? I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you and I were in the same boat at the beginning. I remember when I initially started my business and I was doing the corporate training, 1 and 2 day sessions for the most part. I was working primarily with one client at the time who is an international training company. Mm-hmm. So they bring people like me in, they send us to these places. Mm-hmm. I'm not an employee of theirs, but I vividly remember, I even remember where I was at. Columbus, Ohio was my first day with them. And I got to the front of the room and it was full of about 60 professionals who were there for some leadership topic. I don't remember what the topic of the day was. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, they're all looking at me like, I know what I'm doing.
You're the expert.
Exactly. And this, I know how ridiculous this sounds, but when I would be at the front of classrooms back in the day, those kids that I taught were 8, 9, and 10 years old. And I made
is there a difference?
I made so many mistakes, and kids are so honest. A lot of times they pointed out the mistakes. I love that about kids. But with the adults, it really was a gradual learning process. So with anything in life, when we get to a certain point, we look back. I always look back at these last several years in my life of creating my business, and I realize it's like a stair steps. It's like a flight of stairs. At the beginning, it was, I received certification. I earned certification through that international training company in order for me to be one of the subcontractors that they would consider working with. And then I worked my way up the next step. So it's just step by step by step. At a certain point, I got a certification with an assessment that I offer. So I'm able to offer my clients the assessment and then analyze their results and use those results in the work that I do with my clients. So I look back, I think that was in 2016, I think is when I initially did that. So now we're 5 years later, and I think about the hundreds and hundreds of people that have taken that assessment, and I've been able to work with them through their results, help them improve in certain areas. And I realize the gentleman that shared that with me and then helped me through the certification was someone that I met in the training certification course. Mm-hmm. He and I stayed connected on LinkedIn, and he's like, hey, I want to show you something. So it really is every year, every quarter, every day, it's something else to learn. And the other big piece of learning as a business owner, actually, I think it's a piece of learning for just all humans, is that there will be opportunities and offers that come my way. And sometimes I explore them a little bit before I make my decision. Other times it's just that gut feeling of, this is not the direction that I want to go. Yes. This is not for me. And so not only making those decisions, but also owning my decisions and not looking in the rearview mirror a month later or a year later and saying, oh man, I should have done that. Now the price is higher. Now this, now that, whatever it might be. It really is. I've got that gut feeling telling me no. And I'm going to stay the course doing what I'm doing.
I love that you're actually talking about this, because one of the things that I do a lot with coaches and consultants is they end up, number one, going down a lot of rabbit holes that doesn't serve them.
They're everywhere.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Especially if you're online, there's even more, right? Yeah. When you have to go out and look for them, it's kind of different. But when you're online, they come right to you. Yeah. So that's one of the problems. Another problem that I see a lot, as in the business space, in the business coaching space, I see a lot of people who buy into programs like to be a business coach, but they've never owned a business. They've never run a business. And then they get in and they struggle. I work with a lot of people like this coming out of organizations that they've bought into. They get in there and they struggle because they're trying to learn a whole nother skill set that they just don't have experience with. And I love how you took your experience and said, okay, this is my next step. And this is what I need to do first, go get certified. But it wasn't like you did this total disconnect from what you had been doing. And that's always the faster path that I teach people. If you take what you're already so great at, then you're going to find that you're more aligned in your business
Right.
with the right things. When you try to sort of fit yourself into something that isn't, it's just out of your thing. I don't know how to explain it. It just is a tough path.
And I don't know if this is true for some of the clients that you're describing there, but I think what often happens is that people get frustrated or burnt out or whatever it might be with whatever it is they're doing right now, whatever job they have, whatever business they have. And they want to do, although earlier I used the term, I made an 180-degree shift. I went from teaching to working for that business. Mm-hmm. It really was a huge shift for me. Mm-hmm. And once things got rolling, I realized, oh, wow, in the classroom or with my fellow teachers, there were 9 or 10 of us at the same grade level. Sometimes there were conflicts. In this workplace, there are always conflicts. Mm-hmm. There's a common thread. And then so many other common threads. Even though I made a change from the world of education to the business world, I still was always focused on what can I learn here? Mm-hmm. Always a lot of answers to that. And what is it that I already know? Yes. What is it that I already enjoy rather than somebody coming out of, being an attorney, for example, and saying this is way too stressful, which I hear a lot. So I believe them. And so I'm going to open up a donut shop.
Right.
Like
complete.
Okay.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because when I'm sitting here talking to you and you're talking about teaching kids and now now you're working with adults, you're still teaching, you're still educating, you're still helping. There really isn't a disconnect there. You've just changed audiences.
Yeah, they got taller.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. And, but you haven't gone off into, like you said, into something completely different. And to me, that's one of the biggest problems I see in the coaching industry or in the consulting industry is they go completely off of topic, so to speak, or their area of expertise. So I love how you really did transition, and you really saw it was already in you. It was already your experience, even though you may have felt like it was a huge, huge change. And it was to a degree, it still wasn't. You still had all of the foundational pieces there.
Again, it's looking down that flight of stairs and realizing, oh yeah, I remember that year. I remember what a huge change that was. And looking back now, I think exactly what you just said. Okay, it was a change. And yet there were so many commonalities where I was able to still use the skills that come more naturally for me.
Yes. And that's also why you were very successful, because you didn't have to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly.
Within yourself.
Exactly.
So I love that. I love that you're doing that. And then how did you kind of figure out, I help people with pricing and their offers and things like that a lot. How did you figure out the structure of like what you were going to sell and how you were going to package that? Because for me, when I first started, I didn't have any guidance there. And I just remember how I went out and offered my services, quickly realized I was totally undervaluing, but that
we all go through that.
It was a huge learning curve, which is why I love helping people with that now. But how did you figure that out?
I think that one of the things that goes back to what you and I were talking about just a moment ago, I really focused on what are the areas of leadership that I promoted when I was in my last leadership position as an employee. Mm-hmm. What are the areas that I truly believe in? What are the areas where I do have some expertise? And I'll add a little bit more to that. I am the person, whether I'm working with someone individually or I'm working with a group of people, when a particular topic comes up, such as delegation, I always share the horrible ways that I used to not delegate effectively. So it's that whole idea of I created my business around what I know, what I enjoy, and the lessons that I learned when I wasn't doing many things effectively, so that then the people or person that I'm working with can say, Oh my gosh, I look at that the same way. So sticking with delegation, I hear so frequently, well, I know that there's somebody on my team that can do this, but that person's so busy and I don't want to bog her down and I feel bad. I'm like, I hear you, sister. I used to be you. So let's talk about what you're losing out on by not delegating, what your team members missing out on, what you're missing out on. And I'm able to draw from the many mistakes that I did make, and then I figured them out. So for me, with all coaches, by the way, I believe this, the coach needs to, in my opinion, the coach needs to have gotten over the hump of whatever the thing is that they offer so that they can share their expertise, of course, and also be over the confusion and this part's still not working, but let me try to help these clients. There's no way that 20 years ago, I could have been doing what I'm doing now. I needed all of those experiences where I did some things well and I did some things horribly not well. Horribly not well. I don't think that's quite right.
We know what you
horribly, leave it at that. I needed all those experiences to be where I'm at now, to draw from those experiences and best practices in order to help my clients.
No, that's absolutely true. I mean, I always tell my clients it's a process. And if you don't really embrace that process and everything that comes your way, you don't learn from it, you don't pick up the lesson, and you never know where those things will take you. And I always use the example, I don't know, many, many years ago when I decided I wanted a little bit more mobile business. I didn't want to go into clients' businesses anymore. I didn't want to be running all over the place. I wanted a different lifestyle. And so I made the decision I wanted to come online, and I hired a coach that could help me do that. And at the time, I thought I was just doing that for myself. I thought just so that I could learn how to build a business online. I had no idea I would be working with coaches and consultants and helping them do this. And so I tell my clients, you never know, the things that you're doing and learning can be a skill set that will show up later.
Yes.
And they'll be huge. Everything's value. Everything is a value. Your experience, your lessons, your mistakes, it's all valuable to the clients that you work with.
Yes.
So I love that. So how do you sell your services? As far as how do you set, do you obviously you probably do proposals with the type of clients that you work with. How do you typically structure that? Do you map out a plan? How do you decide the value?
Yeah.
Let's get into some logistics a little bit.
Sure. So I just talked with a prospective client this morning, and she reached out. She learned about me. She is in Michigan. She reached out to me through a fellow coach that we both know, and that coach doesn't offer the same types of services that I do. So building your network is a really smart idea. And we had our initial call, just a consultation, where she shared with me a little bit what's happening, where she wants the company to go, and some of the barriers that are getting in the way. On that call, I shared some of the different ways that I work with organizations, the training sessions, coaching, all those sorts of things. We came to an agreement of what they're looking for specifically for the remainder of this year is what they want to get started with, budgets and all. So my job now is to put together the proposal, which will include not only the pricing, of course, but also the way that I will deliver those services, the objectives, the goals that my work with them will help them achieve. And the proposal will then go through the channels it needs to go through. I will hear back from her, and hopefully we'll get started next month.
And how long does it typically take? So once you, because I don't really work in corporations or in the size businesses that you work with. And I work with more small businesses. I say smaller, I should say.
Sure.
So how long does that process typically take?
The process from initial discussion to let's get started, that varies very much. For her, I know that when she reached out to me through email, she let me know we're looking for something in Q4 of this year. So that's next month. She let me know today. She'll just need to share my information, my proposal, with one person to get final approval, and then we'll get going. I talk with other people who say, we may talk today, for example, and we're in September right now, and they may say what we're doing is we're figuring out what we want to do next year. So we want to tell you what our goals are for 2022. We'll have the initial discussion. I'll go through the same process with everyone. I gather the information. I learn a little bit about what they want to achieve, and I put the proposal together very close to the time of our discussion. And the other thing that I always want to happen very close to our initial discussion and proposal delivery is a follow-up discussion. So as an example, if I did talk with someone today in September and they're looking to start in January, I don't want to wait till December 15th. Let's talk about it in the near future. So I do my best to get that scheduled on the initial call. When can we have a follow-up call for you to let me know any questions that you have about the proposal and to talk next steps?
Great. I love that. That's smart because that's what I teach, obviously, coaches and consultants to do as well with proposals. So often they email them and I say, it's just going to go into the black hole of email. So that's a bad idea. So I do love that you schedule that follow-up.
One of the things I think about with that process is I've always got some kind of analogy, but I always think about when I go into a store, a clothing store, and I try on a blouse or a dress and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. And I look at the price tag and it's not on sale. And I'm like, should I do this or should I not? You know what? I'm just going to go to a couple other stores. Let me think about this. If I leave wherever I'm at, an outlet mall or a regular mall, whatever, or even an online shopping, I am much less likely to come back.
That's right.
Because next week, I'm not even thinking about that dress. I'm thinking about all the other things that are going on. So for me, even in my business, when I'm talking with experts and professionals that I want to hire, I want to make that decision. I was going to say quickly. And what I mean is, I want to do my homework. I want to know what it is that I'm investing in. I want to be very clear. Typically, when I am on a consultation and I'm not the person selling services, somebody else is, I already know before we get on the call if I'm a yes. And the only reason that I'm ever a no is if something happens on that call that the other person says or does, or something about that person's process that really makes me question my initial decision to say yes to that person.
You must have seen my post this morning.
I didn't. I haven't even really been on social media today.
I just said that positioning is how you pre-sell your services before the sales conversation. And so you and I are very much alike. And two, and this is maybe a good thing for people to think about too. When you are success driven, when you're success minded, you do not take forever to make decisions. It's like you said, you do your homework. This is why I always teach you should be positioned well, because you want to give people a way to go check you out. And when they do book that call, they're almost sold. And so you hit the nail on the head there when you said that. And I always talk about the power of that. And beginning coaches don't think like this, right? But people that are busy, people that really have things going on, they're decisive and they take quick action. And if they see something that they need and they believe you're the person that can do that, they will take action. And even with a lot of the people that you work with, if it was up to them on that call, often they would just make that decision and they would say, Tracy, let's do it. But they have other protocols, right? And other things that they have to do.
Exactly. And I think that when I'm on the receiving end and I'm a yes before we get on the call, at the end of the call, if I'm still a yes, I'm thinking specifically of an example. A couple of years ago, I did a consultation with a coach that I wanted to hire. I was a yes when we got on the call. Everything on the call, I was like, I love this. I love this. And then she shared her pricing, which was significantly higher than just what I had in my mind. I'm not really sure why. And I remember my brain went, oh, wow, that's not the number you were expecting. And then I just said to myself, you already said you were a yes. Invest in yourself. This is what you talk to people about. I ended up saying yes on the call. What that gained me and what And I'm not even talking about the work that I did with that coach and the many, many gains that I achieved because of working with her. The other thing it gained me when I got off that call, I didn't have to go through the mind drama of, oh my gosh, it's higher than I thought. I wonder if I should. I wonder if I should. I was a clean yes. And she said, okay, I'll send you the contract in a little while, get it signed. We'll get started. And I was just able to go into the next phase of,
Yes.
I'm so excited to work with her. I want to get my goals ready before our first session. And it saved me a lot of time is what it did.
I love it. We don't need another thing to think about, do we?
Exactly.
And we have too many things to think about as it is. So I love that you're sharing that, because I think that is so, like, people hear that from me all the time, right? I'm always talking about that. I'm always talking about, forward thinking people and success minded people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't take forever to think about. They, just like you, I have this need. I'm a yes. I'm going to get on the call. Oh, it's more. I'll figure it out. I'll make it work, whatever. That's what moves people forward, right? That's how people move forward faster. And so I talk about this all the time, but it's really nice, Tracy.
Well, and I'll be honest, I haven't always been like this. I'm a very detail-oriented person. I like to do all the research. And in the past, I was much more, oh gosh, I don't know if I should say yes. And I've just learned as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, I decision-making skills and solving problems, like you just said, I'll figure it out. It's more than I thought. It's exactly what I thought. I'll figure it out. Sign a few more clients. It's paid for. Let's go. Let's do this. There you
go. Yes. Yeah. So that's such a difference in the way a lot of coaches think. And I think why a lot of them don't move forward as fast, or don't even really have the success that they really desire when they get into their business, because they don't understand these things. And I always say, I've been building businesses for 30 years and I've built several. And so I have had to make a lot of decisions that could have been bankruptcy for us.
Sure.
If they didn't work out. Yeah. And where I had big investments and expansion and all of those kinds of things. And so it's kind of like a muscle that you work. And the more you work it, the less it becomes a big deal.
I agree.
This is part of entrepreneurship.
Well, and I think the other thing, I've not been in business for myself for 30 years. You just said you've had several businesses. I was an employee for many, many years of my career. And there are great benefits to being an employee. You can be hardworking. You can achieve amazing results. You can get paid a wage that you think is fair and then some. This is all great. The other piece of that I've learned through trial and error is, oh, wow, a lot of my life at that time was figured out for me. The place I worked at had the systems in place. The place I worked at let me know when I needed to be there, my start time, my end time. They gave me all of the framework and the structure, and they made a lot of decisions for me. Not all of them, but they made a lot of decisions for me. And then when I went into business for myself, it's a little bit like walking on the tightrope, and you look down and you're like, oh, wow, there's no net down there. Right. I better figure some of this stuff out.
You do have great analogies.
So yeah, it's definitely a skill. I have not always had that decision-making skill, and something I've worked on.
But I think it's really important for people to hear that. And I think it's really important for people to understand that, this is something that you have to really start wrapping your head around, right? Yes. Is you're going to have lots of decisions. They're not all going to work out. They're just not. It's not perfect, right? I remember, I was 13 years in corporate before I started my first business. And even though I was in management, I was managing business and all of those things, just like you said, it did not, even though I had skills and I learned a lot, it still didn't prepare me for having my own business, where all of a sudden I had to know everything. And I wasn't being given a budget. I had to figure those things out. I didn't have this huge marketing budget. I had to figure those things out. Yeah. And I think you do learn that along the way. But I think if a lot of coaches early on, would listen to what people that have been doing this for a very long time would listen to things like that. Look, you need to take risk. You need to, take those steps. I think they would go further faster.
Yeah, I think the risk tolerance that is required of an entrepreneur, of a business owner, it's so much higher than for a lot of people that are employees. Not all employees. I know there are risks involved. I love when you said it's a muscle, the decision making,
Yes.
the being, I was going to say being comfortable, taking risks, being willing to take
Yes.
risks. It is a muscle that you work, and definitely a muscle that I've been working out with for the last few years. Yeah.
You know you're a true entrepreneur when you get bored, right? And you're looking for that next risk. The next big thing.
Yes.
No, and to pull back a little bit, to say that's not always the right thing to do either. You were mentioning the next thing earlier when we were in our conversation, and I always call that SOS, shiny object syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
That is so easy. We were talking about rabbit holes and things like that. But that being said, you can't be afraid. You don't know how things are going to evolve. And if you hold back, if you always stay in what is comfortable, you won't grow, you won't thrive, you won't be successful in this industry, I don't believe, because consulting now is over $200 billion, and coaching is almost at that same level.
Mm-hmm.
And it is growing by leaps and bounds. And I think the pandemic has even added to that more. So you have to be on top of your game in all areas. And it is going to be the ones that step out and the ones that look to do bigger things that are going to survive in this industry, I believe. And
I agree.
I like to see that. So
yeah.
No, it was great. I really kind of took a little bit of a turn from from your actual coaching business to the business side of it, and actually how you run your business and things like that. So Tracy, are you solo, or do you have a small team?
I am solo right now. I'm beginning to bring people in as subs for different training sessions. So an example, one of my long-term clients was really interested in a project management training session. And while I have managed many projects, I am not a project manager. All the lingo, that's not me. I know someone in the industry who worked as a project manager for many years. She currently has a business similar to mine. And I brought her in with the client's permission. We talked about, I want someone else to lead this training session. I'm going to give you a chance to talk with her, get it planned. So that is my vision for where I would like to take my company. Not quite there yet with many different people providing various topics, but that is what the next 2 or 3 years looks like right now for my vision, so that I can focus on the work that I most enjoy, and using that example, be able to provide a wider range of topics that my clients are interested in.
Yes, I actually love that. So you're basically building a company at that point, than just building a job. And that's something that I talk about. I've sold 5 of the 6 businesses I built. So this is my 6th.
Wow.
And so I always have that, I always want to talk, do you want a company, or do you want to just have work and make an income? So I love that you actually have a bigger vision. That's so nice to hear. So many people, don't think like that. And quite honestly, you have something that you could potentially sell, even as you grow that and as you expand that. And that can be extremely lucrative. It just kind of brought to mind, I had a client that was coming out of corporate, and she wanted to structure a consulting business. She had a lot of CEOs and COOs and CTOs that were getting ready to retire, but they didn't want to retire completely. And so she said, I don't know how to structure this and how to put the pieces together. And before she even launched it, and she went out and told her, I said, go out and let's validate your offers here and things like that. Well, before she even did that, she had someone that she was in her network that she had come across when she was in her position, said, if you get this going a year from now, I will buy this for $1 million.
Wow.
So yeah. So that was really validating to her, but also how exciting, to really be able to have that happens. So there's so much opportunity in this industry. And I think it's nice to actually talk to someone who is thinking bigger and thinking beyond yourself, and, how you can do that. So,
yeah, I think it's fun to take some time to focus on, what do I want to do next? Where do I want to go next? I'm closer to the end of my working years than the beginning of my working years. And it's changed since I started my business. At one time it was, and so many of the people in my personal network are employees, always have been. And so they've got it down. They've got 5 years and 3 months and 2 days until their retirement date, right? And then they always ask me, when are you retiring?
And then they'll become a coach. So,
I don't know the answer to that, but it is fun to think about what really is next, or what will I don't think I'll start a different business, but what do I want to happen with this business?
Yes. Exactly. I think that's a really important thing. I always say start with your vision, and you're right. It does change, and it does change as we get older. I have people reaching out to me all the time about where I should be taking my business. And I'm like, look, I've already done all that. I've already, this is, I love my business. I love what I do. I'll probably never really retire, but I don't have the same vision that I did in my other businesses. And that's okay too, but it does not mean I don't have a vision. It's just, it's not the same as what people think I should have. So I love that. And this has been a great conversation, because I never know where these are going to go. And I never know which rabbit hole we're going.
Well, you are really good at facilitating the conversation and moving whatever direction.
Oh, no, my husband says the gift of gab. That's what my husband says.
It's a gift.
I actually lost my voice. I think this is the first week I've actually really had it back in about 6 or 7 weeks. So the previous podcasts that I've been on, it's been this really raspy voice. But when I lost it for 2 weeks, I kid. And I said to my husband, I said, you really liked when I lost my voice, didn't you? He shakes his head. So yeah. Just kidding. We've been married going on 40 years. So, hey, we can say those things. But this has been a lot of fun. And I really appreciate that you were so open and you shared everything, even about just the details in your business and things like that. So anything that you would like to share as we're kind of closing out here. And I know also for anyone that would like to talk to Tracy and feels like you might have a need for her services, we'll put everything with the show notes. So all of her information, but she does offer a free 30-minute session where she will discuss leadership strategy and solutions for challenges that you're experiencing, or if you just want to get better and grow and have more success. So anything else that you would like to add, Tracy?
I think the one thing that we haven't really touched on, but I have a personal experience with it. When I was in my last job, in my last year or so with that organization, I was just not real happy with the work that I was doing. And my brain just kept saying, but this is what you do now. You quit teaching and now you're doing this. And I felt very stuck. And I ended up signing on for a one-time, I believe the woman is a career coach, or was. I don't even know if she's still there. And I just looked up online. I Googled some question about not liking your job. And I believe that she charged $250 for either an hour or 90 minutes of, it was essentially a coaching session. But at the time, I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to do this. She's going to help me figure out what's next for me. She did not tell me, start a company, provide training and coaching. She didn't give me that. But for me at the time, I was so enmeshed in employee brain, and this is what you do. You're an adult. You've got kids to support. I was just so stuck in what I was doing, that going outside of that and looking for what can I do to help myself feel better every day, to help me really utilize the talents that I have. So where I'm going with this is, for anybody that's listening, you said you have a lot of coaches and consultants that listen. I know for sure that business ownership is a difficult road. And a lot of times it's very lonely for people that might be listening that are leading different teams. The whole idea here is come out of the comfort zone and decide, who can I talk with? Do I want to call Ann to figure out how do I build my business? How do I create those offers? Do you call them high ticket offers? Is that the right
ultra
term?
premium?
Ultra
Yes,
premium.
you could say high ticket. I said, in my last book, I talked about high ticket so much, but the problem is that's so overused. And I think it's very deceptive in what I consider. So now I've switched my language.
Yeah.
It's evolved.
Yeah.
I'm ready to rewrite my book.
Love that. My whole point being that life is short. Get out there, talk with a person that can help you get out of a rut that you might be in, whether it's a business that you own or if you're an employee, and the whole world will open up for you to be able to do what you most love.
I love that. I love that you share that to kind of end this. And it's so true. We have more opportunity than we have ever had in history to get help, to get mentorship, to find a new passion, to find a new career, to find a new way. We do not have to stay where we are. And everything is there for you. You just have to take that step. That's really what it boils down to. So, Tracy, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for being my guest. And everyone, please reach out to her if you have a need for her services. And again, just check out all the links. Follow her. She's on LinkedIn. She's on Facebook. She's so personable. I just literally reached out to her and said, hey, we're in the same area, and kind of checked her out, saw what she was doing. And I said, I'd love to interview you. So get to know her and definitely reach out to her if you have a need. So thank you again for being here. And for everyone, if you have a need in your business, you want to grow, you have a challenge, and it's something that has to do with marketing, sales, revenue, building your team, Tracy or I, either one, you can have a conversation with both of us and get help from either. So please reach out to us. And until next time, thank you again for being and listening to the show. Make sure that you subscribe. Make sure you also hit that notification bell, because every week I release new episodes. So God bless you all. Bye-bye. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Ann.
If you've enjoyed this episode, I want to invite you to go check out a free training that I have at expertinu.us. It is a training that I have on how you can get ultra premium dream clients, scale your business, get more freedom, and really simplify your business and multiply your money. So go check that out. And again, that is expertinu.us. I want to thank you for being here with me this week. I hope you found massive value. Please always leave a comment, feedback, or a question. We check them all. And I want you to go rock your business, and make sure you join us again next week. God bless you. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.